All right, let's return to our earlier story. The United States and China are planning to work together to tackle climate change. That's emerged at the COP26 Summit in Glasgow. These are the world's two biggest emitters of carbon dioxide, but they say they'll work together to cut down methane emissions, phase out coal consumption and protect forests. And this is as COP26 is basically winding up. For more, we're joined by our correspondent, Makin-Isherwood. Laura, thank you for being with us. So this must be hugely welcomed because you've got the two big players finally saying they'll work together. Just tell us about some of the details of the deal and the responses.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, China and the US, as you said, are two of the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the world. And there was a lot of concern that China's President Xi Jinping had not arrived at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow and was not here to meet leaders, get around the table with them and commit to these ideas and pledges that leaders that were here, the near 200 nations represented, had hoped would allow the world to stick beneath that 1.5 degree global temperature rise target by the end of this century. So now this announcement that US President Joe Biden has seemingly managed to sort out some sort of bilateral agreement by which the two nations will be pushing towards a society that uses less carbon is being massively welcomed. It's a big boost and obviously will bring negotiators that sort of extra morale that they might need in the last 24 hours or so of negotiations here. However, details are pretty scarce at the moment. There's no timelines, no real plan or roadmap as to how this is going to play out. But at least now President Xi Jinping is committing to doing more.
So China is saying it sees an end in sight to the use of coal is quite incredible. But you're saying no timeline on when that would be, when we start phasing out coal, nothing like that.
It doesn't seem like there's much detail, no. And this is the wider issue that many people are talking about here, generally about the pledges that are being made at COP26, because a lot of these big ideas, cutting carbon emissions, cutting methane gas by 30% by 2030, that's been given a timeline. But even then, it's not legally binding. It's counting on the goodwill of these nations, of governments really following through on the promises that they're making. And that's what activists are struggling to reconcile here, basically saying that, often these words are said and it's not until a few years down the line that you can really tell whether these governments are going to follow through. Now, there's a lot of pressure being put on negotiators now in this final 24 hours by some high-profile names, including the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who's really calling on leaders to get in touch with their teams and urge them to pull out all the stops to get some sort of big deal over the line by the end of Friday. But there's still rumours here flying around that these negotiations could continue on beyond that scheduled end on Friday afternoon. And actually, climate experts say that it doesn't end with this summit. In fact, it's just the start. And there is a commitment now for countries to get around the table again every year to try to keep on top and keep track of what their promises are actually delivering.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, this was seen by some as a last chance, really, for the world to get together and get its act together and come up with firm commitments that are implementable to stop something dire happening in the future. Is there a sense that if that can be worked out, if countries stick to their commitments, this COP26 has been a success?
Well, the target is always to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees by the end of this century. Now, that was agreed 6 years ago in Paris under the Paris Climate Accord. That's what nations have been saying that they will do. And there's been a lot of big announcements here over the last 2 weeks. However, modelling from scientists suggests that even with those big pledges, we could still be looking at a temperature rise of around 1.8 to 2.4 degrees. And, that range is quite large. So, yeah, it's a bit of a last-ditch attempt, people are saying. Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, even calling it a sort of 1 minute to midnight scenario on the doomsday clock. So it seems like even though we've been aware that climate change has been in progress for decades, actually now people seem to be really taking stock and thinking this is the time to get it done. However, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is still remaining slightly optimistic that there might be at least a big deal done here at COP26 in Glasgow, and he says as long as there is still time, then there is still hope.
All right, well, let's follow those crucial last days. Thank you. Please keep checking in with us. That's our correspondent reporting live from COP26 in Glasgow, Makin-Isherwood.